Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night conversation. What an exciting evening of interaction we're going to have this evening. This is April 29th, 2021. My name's Bob Warner. I'm here with my beloved Noel Marshall. We call ourselves Light Partners, and each of you are also Light Partners. And we know that to be true in our hearts. We have been preparing for tonight with our dear friend Karen being our conversationalist all week. I have been eating all week long just in preparation of this evening. I'm so excited. So before I introduce our beloved soul sister Karen, I would like to share, for the benefit of those that will be watching these recordings at a later time, a 1-minute, very fast-paced, very noisy video introduction of the Co-Creators Convergence. So you know who we are and what we do. Hang on to your hats. And that's who we are, this beloved community of the Co-Creators Convergence. Thank you. And I want to do a little bit of an introduction of Karen, but before we do, it seems appropriate this evening that we should have rather than a centering, maybe a blessing of our food for the evening. And this is one that we share oftentimes when we have visitors in our home. We're blessed to have visitors in our home. It is 5 contemplations before eating. It is given by Thich Nhat Hanh at his order in his order of interbeing Buddhist community that spans the globe. These are the 5 contemplations. This food is a gift of the earth, the sky, numerous living beings, and much hard and loving work. May we eat with mindfulness and gratitude so as to be worthy to receive this food. May we recognize and transform unskillful states of mind, especially our greed, and learn to eat with moderation. May we keep our compassion alive by eating in such a way that reduces the suffering of living beings, stops contributing to climate change, and heals and preserves our precious planet. We accept this food and this evening together talking about food so that we may nurture our brotherhood and sisterhood, build our community, and nurture our ideal of serving all living beings. So let's take a breath into that contemplation. Thank you. So it was, let's see, the first weekend of December, 2007. Noel and I walked into a room, a ballroom in some city in California.
Palm Desert.
Palm Desert, there we go. And we were going to experience a weekend with one of our spiritual teachers along the way. Her name is Barbara DeAngelis. And what would become a 2 or 3 year adventure with her. And there were a few guides and angels at the front of the room uh, who assisted Barbara in guiding those of us that had no idea what we just walked into for the weekend. One of those was Karen. One of the things I remember most of that weekend was Karen's declaration of her caring for the world's children, her desire when she grew up. Noelle and I had no idea what we were going to do when we grew up, but Karen knew very well that whatever it was going to be, it would have to do with nurturing, protecting, teaching young people. It had a little different form than it has happened over the last 14 years that we've known. Was that 14 years? Maybe more than that, 14 years. And we have been on an adventure together since. We have experienced many, many things together, and watching her growth, having the opportunity to spend time at her home and to meet her sons and to have her dog sit for us while we went to on other adventures. We've had adventures with her in uh, visiting the Sanctuary of Healing in UK, where the Band of Light brings forth the Joseph communications. We've had opportunities to be in Dominar and experience flying through the cosmos in the Temple for Humankind in the communities of Dominar. We've had the experience of going through German customs on a layover in the wrong direction. We were already in customs and we had to come back out through customs. They were very confused by all of that. But those are the kind of adventures we have been involved in with Karen, including encouraging people to put residential solar on their homes. So this is a person that cares deeply about humanity and a person who cares deeply about our planet. And it's been such a heart journey for us to spend as much time as we get to spend with Karen. She is a family coach passionate about nurturing children. And she believes that connecting to our hearts is our greatest asset as humanity. She assists people in that heart connection with her work and her soul surfing, as she calls it. And she's really excited to have recently completed her training in social emotional learning. It will add to that repertoire of other things that many of us here have experienced with her and know how much she's shared with the world. Her heart thread and her reconnective healing, medicine woman soul sessions. And with that recent accreditation with social emotional healing, she's actually going to be doing a course in early August. So we'll be sure and she'll be sure and tell you about that. And we're going to share in the chat and whatnot. So Karen, seriously, I have been eating all week getting prepared for this, but I just think this is such a delicious opportunity for us to be talking about food and what it really means to all of us. So with that, dear sister.
Oh, all right. You guys hear me okay?
We can. You are in the spotlight.
I kind of see this as like setting the buffet table. There's so many people involved when we prepare a meal, when we put something together. And that is, this is what's going to happen tonight. And to be honest with you, I've been in the best sense of the word overwhelmed. I am in overwhelm of gratitude and the way that the universe works when we just plant the seed and the amount of material that people have provided me just because I said, it started with Patrick actually. And I said, maybe that's what I'll talk about. You know, I know I've been wanting to talk about, and you'll understand in a few moments, you know, why this was a catalyst for me to have this discussion. So I just honor and thank each and every one of you. And Bob, thanks for that little kind of trip down memory lane. So we're here tonight talking about food traditions and how they impact our lives today, our personal lives, our health, our community, and the globe, the planet. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to invite each of us to put our voice into the circle right away and share our name, if you want to share the region you're from, and a food tradition that you did or did not have in your family growing up. We're going to go around the circle and do that. I have 3 bits of very factual information, a couple of clips I'd like to share, and a little bit that I want to read. And then it's going to be conversation as to how we got to this point. So, Bob, you probably could not have selected a more perfect offering for us to come together in our centering. And so thank you for that. So I'll just, start by, my name is Karen Trujillo Heffernan. And in my family, I grew up in Southern California. And we did have this tradition from, I feel it really was from Mexican food tradition of tamales on New Year's. And they have been a part of our lives. And throughout my life, as I've changed the way that I'm eating for various reasons, I've had to relook at that family tradition and how do I want to keep that in my life. And I will be sharing more on that, as the evening goes on. So I would like to just open up the circle. You guys can unmute, share your name, your food tradition, and maybe where you're from. And then I'll actually help a little bit. I'm going to pass it off. So I think I'll start with Grace.
Well, thank you, Karen. I'm Grace. I'm from Kentucky, from the South. And, traditionally, what first came up was the traditional Thanksgiving, the turkey and everything. That is probably our primarily traditional dinner as far as that for our family. And I pass it off to Flo.
Hi, I'm Flo Bonamasso. I grew up in Chicago. I currently live in Evanston, Illinois, right next door. There's many traditions, I would say. I also went to chef school in the 70s, and that changed some of my traditions. But the most heartfelt one, I would say, is my parents always made, or my dad always made popcorn. So when my dad was gone and my mom was in hospice and she was passing away, my sister and I thought, let's make her feel at home, and we made popcorn. And it really did, there's, it's a pretty intense smell. So she was kind of out of it and she got it, and it seemed like it calmed her down. So I'll stick with that for now. Thank you. Let's go with Zachary.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zach Johnson. I'm just north of Flo. I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'm about an hour and a half from Flo. So we're neighbors. I grew up with the traditional African-American soul food diet, which we've had a wonderful conversation all week about because it's been a big controversy in the paper about the connection of this diet with obesity and high blood pressure and all other things, diabetes and all the things that go along with it. So even though I was blessed to have never missed a meal in my life, I was kind of spoiled as a kid, but sometimes there's a challenge caught up in the blessing. And that diet that has meant so much to family tradition in the Black community, it's turned out to be a challenge and a difficult, something that's going to have to be addressed. So hopefully we're going to talk more about it.
And Zach, go ahead and tap somebody.
Okay, why don't we go to Mike? Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael. I'm joining the call from Austin, Texas. And one of the food traditions that came to my mind was pizza on Friday nights. And it's one that actually, not necessarily having pizza on Friday nights, but one that's continued and kind of picked up when life and schedules got changed around last spring, but doing kind of a special meal, a special takeout meal on Friday nights. And it's just, in some ways, it's a great motivator to kind of have that to look forward to at the end of the week and a fun way to start the weekend. So pizza and movie nights was always the big tradition growing up on Friday nights. Oh, and I'll pick Patrick.
I'm Patrick, and I'm joining the call from Washington Heights in New York City. This is going to sound like I'm being a Debbie Downer, but I think I just have to speak to it because it's what feels present for me now, in terms of some of the work that I've been doing around my relationship with food and acknowledging really a tradition and a ritual around numbing with food and sugar. Womp womp. So I love food, and I really love tasting beautiful foods, but this is the most prominent thing that I'm working with right now in terms of like pattern recognition, in managing stress and how I cope with that stress in terms of what I'm eating. So yeah, just acknowledging and shining some light on that tradition that's been a part of the cycle for me for a long time, trying to rewrite that cycle. I'll pass to Elliot.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, everyone. I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I'm not going to go with the tradition. What just is so present for me right now is one occasion when I was visiting my grandparents, my mother's parents in Texas. And, you know, I guess I was there every summer when I was a kid. And there was one occasion when my mother asked for, I guess it was her tradition, asked my grandmother to make the meal that she remembered from her childhood, which was pot roast, I guess, was that part of it? And black-eyed peas. The combination doesn't sound right, but these are the foods that you know, my grandmother would always make. The black-eyed peas I'd never had in my life before, and so that was a new experience for me. So that day stays with me decades later.
Elliot, who would you like to tap?
Yes, my friend Tex.
Thank you. So I'm originally from the Seychelles Islands in the Indian Ocean, north of Madagascar, 4 degrees south of the equator. 200 odd years ago, there were no one in Seychelles. There was no one in Seychelles. So the population of Seychelles is a mixture of people from different continents. So my tribe really is very much humanity in a way. And when I heard that we are all indigenous to the planet, I think this was quite, how can I say, paradigm shifting for me. Rather than thinking of the Maoris or the Mohawks as indigenous, you know, we should all consider ourselves indigenous to the planet. Anyway, in the Seychelles, one of the food tradition is breadfruit. I don't know if you're aware of the breadfruit. Breadfruit is it grows into a huge tree, and the fruits can be, you know, maybe about 2 kilos and more, depending on the varieties. And there are several varieties of breadfruit in the world, and breadfruit earned a reputation with the film Mutiny on the Bounty. If any one of you have seen the film Mutiny on the Bounty, it was all about transplanting breadfruit from the Pacific islands of Tahiti to some of the British colonies, especially in the Caribbean. So at some point, breadfruit was considered to be a bit like, you would say, slave food, you know, or food of, you know, indentured workers, you know. But in the Seychelles, breadfruit has come to be quite traditional, and you know, would have it roasted in an open fire. You just toss a breadfruit in an open fire, and once there's a little layer of ash on it, then it's cooked inside. So that was the, you know, generally if you're burning, you know, like cleaning up on the property and you're burning things, you know, you'd get a breadfruit and toss it in there, you know. And of course, you can have it as fries and so many other ways as you would use potatoes. And it's said, we generally say to the tourists, if they have breadfruit when they in Seychelles, they're bound to come back. Like it's like a must. If you've eaten breadfruit, you will be coming back to the Seychelles. So I will leave it at that. I'll put a link here of the Breadfruit Institute of Natural Tropical Botanical Gardens of Hawaii. That's where there's the largest collection of breadfruit varieties. And there's a big program of trying to propagate breadfruit, especially in the tropical areas where growing breadfruit could help a lot with staving off hunger. Thank you.
Thank you, Tex. Who would you like to pass the talking stick to?
Well, I guess Noel. I don't think we've heard her, no?
Correct.
And you can hear me okay? Well, you know, after 10 years living in an RV, it's really kind of difficult to have a tradition per se. So I'll wind the clock back a little further and say that I was raised Catholic. So of course, every Friday was fish sticks. So a lot of fish on Friday. Then we moved to Wisconsin, and I didn't know this, but Friday fish fries are huge there. And you go to what they call the supper clubs. And the supper clubs, you come in and you don't go right to a table. You go to the bar and then you order your fish and your drinks there. And then you eventually get sent to a table to eat. And it's really a different, it's really an experience. I don't think I'm adequately describing how unique it is, but a lot of fish. But recently, since we just now lived in this home which we bought a year ago, not quite a year ago, we have a Wednesday night call. And so Wednesday night is always gluten-free pizza night. So we're reestablishing, I'm with you there, Michael. So, and except ours is on Wednesday. So other than that, you know, it's not a lot of family food tradition, you know, the regular, you know, the ham but then that was another thing. We changed our diet completely and we don't eat meat anymore. And we rarely have fish. So it's changing. So I will send it to, let's see, Jessie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessie. I grew up in Southern California, but I live in Phoenix now. My food traditions are kind of funny. I am one of 6 kids, and my mom still claims to this day that she doesn't know how to cook. My dad barbecues. That's pretty much it. My dad loves butter, so his food was heavy, fat kind of food. My mom was easy, quick, making meals that all 6 of us would eat and agree on. So I grew up eating probably the same 6 to 10 meals over and over again throughout my entire childhood, which was like spaghetti and tacos and chicken noodle casserole. Kind of not really aiming for the healthiest food really, but more of just what's convenient and cheap and you could feed a lot of people. So I'm at the point in my life where my partner and I are more focused on eating much healthier, just cooking also, because that just wasn't really something happening in our home. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. And I'll pass this over to Linda.
Linda Frank from Huntsville, Alabama. Linda, we're introducing ourselves, where we're from, and a example of a family food tradition.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
So you'll have to excuse me. My internet is not very good right now, so hopefully you guys can hear me. But a food tradition in my family was mornings, lox and bagels, and uh, and that was one of my favorite things. My dad would take us to the bakery, into the deli. We would pick up the lock and cream cheese and bagel, and then we would go to the bakery and get cakes. My favorite was crumb cakes. My dad liked jelly donuts, but my favorite was crumb cakes. So that was my family tradition when I was growing up. So let's see, I pass it to Flo if she hasn't gone already.
She has, and
Okay, how about Zach?
I think it's Bob.
everybody but me, everybody but me.
Thanks, Linda.
Oh, well, then we'll call on you, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Thank you for being here tonight. I would
Oh,
say
yeah.
family tradition were all the American dream traditions of Caucasians. And so Christmas, Thanksgiving turkey, Christmas ham, New Year's, there's something about sauerkraut or something or other. I don't remember what
Black eyed peas.
and black-eyed peas or something or other. I've tried to put it out of my mind. Another special family tradition for us growing up was whoever's birthday it was got to decide what we were going to have for dinner. Whether I liked chicken cacciatore, not, that my sister would pick every year. And so that was another family tradition. And we can talk more about the evolution, as Noelle talked a little bit about our lifestyle over the decades, because back in my W-2 working days, there was a lot of business meetings, business dinners, meat, parties at our house, barbecue, smoked dead animals that I wouldn't do now, and things like that. So thank you. I'm complete for the moment.
Thank you so much, everybody. Linda did spark one. I just have to share in here. At some point when I have 4 children, Patrick is on and he's 32, and the youngest is 24. And somewhere, I think Patrick was out of the house maybe, but at some point I thought, I'm not doing enough traditions. I need to do something. And I got to have a lot of pan dulce, which is Mexican sweetbread, with my Nana and my grandpa growing up. So I started this tradition on Friday morning before school, get up at 6 a.m. and go to the panderia. We found out when these conchas came out of the oven hot. And I mean, it's so impractical because I had to get to work, the boys had to get to school, but I just was like, we need a tradition. And so whichever boys were willing to drive with me, we'd get up, we'd drive 25, 30 minutes, get them the pan dulce, drive back. And personally, like, I don't even know how many times we did it, but now that it just came up, Linda, that you just said that, like, I loved that I did that. And I don't know that Patrick and Michael actually were as much a part of it as the other 2 younger boys. But so food. I want to say, I think 3 core things. I had no idea, as I mentioned in the beginning, when I decided to talk about this, was just that it took a while to come up with that title and where this would go. Yet 3 core things for me to come out of this evening, every day that I live, is that it sounds like every person here that shared. I mean, Zachary's really the only one that said it, but and actually Bob and Noelle messaged it to me. Like, I've always had access to food my entire life, and not just basic food, but an abundance of food. And every person on this planet not only has that right, but just should be eating healthy, sustainable food and clean water. So one of my core things is that from this moment forward, that is an absolute, that happens. And there's so many people in the world working towards this, and I'm glad that I'm uniting with them more. And so that's a reason why we're having this conversation tonight. We get to maybe share some fond memories, but it's so much deeper than that. And another core is just our relationship to food and the planet. The planet gives us everything. And how are we respecting our planet when it comes to the nourishment that we're providing for ourselves, the gift that it's giving us? And then, nonviolence in food. And I'm still really learning here. I did begin eating primarily a plant-based diet back in October. Yet I really won't say that I'm committed to that 100% at this point. You know, my brother brought fresh eggs over from his chickens. I know where they live. I know how they live. And I ended up having an egg, which I hadn't had in maybe a year. I haven't had an egg. And, you know, I just really contemplated that. So that's a core of this conversation, is what is in balance? How can we eat our food and not be in excess of, you know, what's happening in our industries of, you know, to animals right now, our factory farming and such. And then you know, Patrick shared, you know, about sugar and addiction and how much do we use food as an addiction. And we're going to see a little clip about that. I'm going to take the time to share, you know, about a 3.5-4 minute clip to bring that into our conversation tonight. So, and then the other piece that I wasn't expecting, even though it's beautiful because it's at the core of what I do. I have a business that's called Surf in Your Soul. I believe that I am here first and foremost as a soul. And I have the gift of this physical body to be my go-kart, my surfboard, my car, my vehicle that carries my soul through the planet. And so I get to nourish this physical body with food. Yet as a soul, we're all connected. So one of the shares I had today for somebody who couldn't be on the call, she said, could I share my story? And she's Italian. And for many years, 30 years, her family had an Italian restaurant. And one day her grandfather, when she was a teenager and younger, she would make this recipe of rice balls with her grandfather. And one day he told her the recipe. And years later, when she was in her 30s or 40s, she made these and shared them with her family. So there was her father and her 3 uncles, and they were astounded. They were like, it tasted exactly like the grandfather used to make. And they're like, how do you know this? He never told anybody the recipe. So she got this gift of how valuable, you know, it was to share this family recipe and the memories. So we just shared that today. And after we shared that this morning, she called me 3 or 4 hours later. And she said, where I'm living right now, she was having a challenge. And so someone offered to bring her lunch. She just moved to a new area. And they said, we're going to order from this original Italian deli for you. So here's the menu, order something. Now she's seen this deli because she's Italian. She looked at the menu, and for the first time ever, they had rice balls on the menu. And not only that, but the name of the cheese that was on there was Di Stefano cheese. I might be saying her name wrong. Sorry if I am. And so she just called me up and she's like, Karen, my grandfather is speaking to me today. His spirit and his soul is speaking to me through the rice balls. So that is an aspect for me that I also want to acknowledge in this conversation tonight, because I actually also believe that the way we eat, our bodies can be so pure that it heightens our connection to the ancestors who have gone before us, to the people on this planet, whether it be, you know, Noel, like we call and we think of each other in the same moment. So food is love. My neighbor told me that once. I had never heard that. Food is love. And so that's what we're here unpacking tonight. And for those who do not have this entire call and conversation, this conversation is dedicated to every single person on the planet right now that isn't able to nourish their body with healthy food and water, because we have that resource here on the planet. So as we share all aspects of our food traditions, we know that we'll be impacting them as well. And I had another person that just told me we didn't have food traditions. And I think that's why we were always just grabbing fast food or convenient, or, you know, we just didn't have that in our lives. So I'll stop there. There's going to be some more sharing later. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to just show you one or two little, well, I'd actually like to read something to you. because this is the core reason what got me going on this. So let me share my screen. So I think the reason I started this whole conversation is because I had seen somebody talk about the Native Americans. I live in New Mexico now, and I'm so passionate about the ways of the Native Americans. And there's so much here in this article, and I'll put the link in the chat, but I did want to just take a moment. My focus this past year has been on just so much of the wrongdoings that have occurred with Native Americans and what I always thought Thanksgiving was and where that food tradition even came from. I mean, I boycotted Thanksgiving for a while when I really learned more about what had really happened with the Native Americans and just trying to bring all of this into alignment. So I want to, there's really like 3 minutes here that I want to read, yet I'm going to just select a few pieces here or skim over some things. But I just want to give some facts. And the only two cultural groups that I'm actually highlighting tonight are the American Indians and the Black community. And Zachary sent me some really beautiful information, and we're going to be sharing a clip about that. But this is, you know, the Americans are overweight from the way that we're eating. And what got me was that some of these traditions that started out, we didn't necessarily know why we came to these foods. So for Native Americans, fry bread is just this precious tradition. And, you know, I'm going to read a little bit as to why that came about and how we want to honor and keep that, yet also, you know, the line that I heard is that the very foods that were their traditions are now the foods that are actually killing them. And so how do we, for Americans who maybe are over consuming on fast food and poor diet, Native Americans for the fatty diet, how do we shift this? So again, that's why we're here tonight. So a couple highlights here with this. The battle with obesity has become one of the most urgent health issues in America today, as over 1/3 of adults and 17% of children are now obese. But for Native Americans, this problem is even more dire. So this article just goes on to state the statistics about the heart disease and the diabetes rates, and you know, poverty being a leading contributor, and how they don't have access to these clean and healthy foods, and they're in these food deserts now. And so the piece of, you know, the area that I'm always looking to heal is what I'm going to read to you here about the root of the issue. So I read this so that we can take the moment of reflection as to the wrongdoings that happened, and then what can we do today in all ways, you know, with physical action, with prayer, with energy work to shift this. The problem of poor nutrition in Native American communities extends back far beyond the immediate obstacles of poverty. Native people hunted, fished, and gathered for their food from the land. But in the 1830s and 40s, under the Indian Removal Act, Native American tribes signed treaties with the US government that regulated them to reservations. This relocation also removed Native people from their usual food sources and the active lifestyles that their hunting and gathering required. So a lot of you probably know this history. The government came in, people were taken away from their original food sources, cheaper food was made available to them. So here, these cheaper, nutritionally empty foods became the new traditional for American Indians as they developed a taste for the only foods available to them. The person writing this article, or, you know, interviewed, recalls a grandmother eating a large sandwich. People now have a preference for processed foods, high sugar, white flour, all of those things that are terrible for you, terrible for all of us, and they're killing, and not just the Native Americans, but many people. So here's the story about the fry bread. It's made from a deep mixture of flour and lard, which sounds delicious to me, donuts, eaten with butter, jam, or meat and cheese. It is the quintessential example of a food derived from government rations, now considered to be a typical American food. We call fry bread a cultural food because it's not traditional, explains Miller. It was born out of necessity. People got these food packages and they were hungry, and they had to figure out what to do with the rations they'd been given. Fry bread is not something that people expect Native Americans to give up anytime soon because it's become a comfort food. In an American Indian family where the mother is an alcoholic or addicted to drugs, conditions that occur at a higher rate, I'm highlighting, a mom who's trying to do a good thing for the children will occasionally make a bunch of fry bread, and that might be a good memory. So a lot of people have a real emotional attachment to fry bread because it represented good times. Well, that's funny because I didn't even connect that to what I said to you earlier. Like, I wanted to make this great memory for my children, right? So I took them to get this pan dulce. And so we have such emotional attachment to food. And so I guess that's all I want to share on that. And I will, I do want to pull up a clip though. I want to try to do a couple of these more technical things and then just open up the conversation again for feedback. So let's see if I can just do that.
Obesity, because that's important. You can't be healthy and be overweight. Okay, get this nonsense out of your head, brothers and sisters, that the BMI chart isn't for Black people. The BMI chart is wrong for all people because it's inaccurate. You should be within your BMI. Look at pictures of our people from years ago, and you see a slim, healthy people. So don't accept that myth that, oh, well, I'm Black, or I'm big bone. No, you're not big bone. If you die and we remove all the flesh and all the fat from you, your skeletal system be the same like the next person. Okay, and it's not healthy to strive out. There's an epidemic of our Black women who want to be thick and sacrificing their health because we have embraced a toxic culture within the Black community that's promoting obesity. It's very dangerous. Obesity is linked to all diseases.
Okay, so I just want to open it up for some what people might be feeling from a couple of these shares, thoughts. Let me see here. I do see it used to be poor people were skinny. Now the impoverished have only poor selections for cheap food, fast food, and food deserts. And yes, I'm addicted to sugar. Let's see. My maternal grandmother's tradition to me was a strawberry float, strawberry ice cream and 7-Up. She would mail me $2 for the birthday float, sent $2 when I was 8 years old, and still $2 when I was 20 years old in college. Guess she's not heard of inflation. My Aunt Dorothy would never tell us the secret to her chocolate chip cookies. One of my sister makes something close, but not Aunt Dorothy's. So there's a few things there. Let's see, one more thing here. More than 80% of the world's hunger live in tropical and subtropical regions, facing soaring food, fuel, and fertilizer costs. Farmers in the tropics need sustainable, low input nutritious crops. Many countries with a total population of over 2 billion people have ecological conditions suitable for cultivating breadfruit. So that was a little bit from Tex. So let's hear from you. What are you guys feeling, thinking, would like to add?
I'd like to say that, you know, when I graduated from chef school, I was pregnant with my son. And I had a lot of time on my hand, and it was a traditional, you know, old fashioned, like French type cooking where everything was made with a roux and sweets and butter and everything. And I am a sugar addict. So I passed this down to my kids, and I never wanted to do that. Now I'm a grandmother, and when I take my kids out, and we try to spend as much time outside because I have a very small place, I pack them up food before I go, and it's sliced vegetables and fruit, and I'm trying my best. My grandson, who's only 18 months, he still wants the bread in there. But, you know, I always make sure that I have that for them and choices. So even if later on they don't eat something good, the things that they're starting with are fruits and vegetables. And so, you know, all we can do is do better when we know better. And it seems stupid that we're ignorant of the fact that sugar was bad for us. You know, I mean, that really seems lame. Of course it was bad for us, but it is the evil white powder, and it's in me. I'm trying.
Thank you, Flo. And I think it's important to remember that, you know, how things were designed, marketing and such, to program, you know, us to reach for these foods. I mean, we, you know, just reading that about the Native Americans. So who else would like to share?
One of the things that struck me, and you talk about Native Americans specifically, is I first heard the term food deserts only in recent years. I've heard a lot of terms of truth in recent years, and that's one of them. And always, until a couple of years ago, I always thought of it in the context of inner city. And, you know, because that's the first place I heard of it is, you know, there's no, you know, in the inner city, in the ghettos, whatever, there isn't any Whole Foods store there or fresh market. And so they're relegated to eating what's at the corner convenience store, corner grocery store, which is processed food and crap. And in more recent years, I was at a lecture at Eastern Tennessee State University, a student put on and talked about that there's the food deserts that are in rural areas and what that looks like. And what you were just describing for Native Americans, and not appreciating until now, how it went back to US government action against an entire class and culture of people in our country. And then the results thereof, you know, the evolution of why it became what it is today. And it's just so striking to see how these decisions have been made and the effect that it's had on people and the amount of food insecurity in this country, let alone the richest country in the world, everybody keeps claiming, monetarily, obviously, not necessarily consciously. And we have so much food insecurity in this country. And it come to realize even the business patterns of the stores, because if you go into a small community in America, you just drive across America and go on the back roads of America through the small cities, you're going to come across many more Dollar Generals than you do. And then the next city of 10,000 people you come to, there's a Walmart there. And those are the choices that most of America has for food. And so there's a lot going on in our society about this whole subject. I too never felt like, as others have said, never felt like I was without food, but I honestly know that my mom and my father, when he would show up, were probably had a different view of the world when it came to food security and how difficult it was for them to be feeding four of us. But I never went to bed hungry. And it's absolutely a sin in our society that's the case today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And what I want to also weave in, because I know that for me personally, I can tend to like sometimes see like all the things that are wrong and the challenge. And so it's like I've really been practicing weaving in the positives that are happening. You know, Love, Serve, Remember Foundation is always feeding people in their communities. The Sikh community, when Bob and Noel took me to the Parliament of World Religions, I didn't even realize their commitment to feeding people all of the time. Then we're going to take like 3-4 minutes in just a bit to watch another clip. And you know, in the fast food industry, you know, as much grease and such is out there. There's a gentleman, Sam Polk, and he started a concept called Every Table. And actually my brother-in-law works with them. And what he's done is he originally, he was a Wall Street guy. He left that. He was, you know, really wanting to get food out to those food deserts, as you said. His original concept was creating cooking classes and teaching people how to create and to make healthy food. And what he learned is that they didn't have the time for that. They're working 2 or 3 jobs, they're raising children, there just was no time for that. So he's developed this company called Every Table. You can Google it. and it is a restaurant, and if there's a higher, let's say Beverly Hills, if you were selling a salad or a sandwich at every table in Beverly Hills, it would be, I'm just throwing a number out here, $20, $15. But if you took that same sandwich, he goes into another area, lower economic status, and they sell it for a lower, they match the price of the product to the economic standard or ability of the community. So that's a new concept is out there. So I want to mention that as well, and just continue that we all like keep speaking up on what is happening, for the positive.
So I want to kind of jump in here and just say, if we look at how our culture has really promoted sugar, I mean, look at the grocery stores. What is the last thing that you see at the cashier? I mean, it's like so much chocolate, so much sugar, so much. I mean, the other thing is, if you look at other cultures do the same thing. It's like we anesthetize and numb ourselves with sugar because we don't want to feel our feelings, because we don't want to feel whatever discomfort, whatever it is. But I think, the comment about food addictions is a really relevant one. And it's like, there's a pandemic when it comes to people not knowing how to eat healthy, right? And it's all about, we want comfort. We want that immediate gratification. And that's what we've grown up with. And I think, it's like any country that I have been to, there's always so much sugar. It was funny. I was in an Indian grocery store yesterday, or the day before, and I could not believe the aisles that were filled with sweet stuff, with cookies, with chocolates, with all of these things. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what is this about? I mean, and just go into any grocery store and you go to the checkout line and it's a ton of candy bars and chocolate and whatever. Anyway, it just seems to me it's a pandemic or an epidemic. Let me call it that way. It's an epidemic. So yeah, I just had to say that.
Yeah, Linda, excellent. I thank you so much for pointing that out. Yes, and yes. Yes, I want to acknowledge, that Daniel popped on the line, and Daniel, I don't know if you want to say anything or not, and you certainly don't have to. We had opened with everyone, saying a food tradition that they may have grown up with and how that might be impacting them today. So you're welcome to offer that at any point if you would like. Thank you for being here. And again, it's open for feedback. Who else would like to offer something?
As well as Anne, when she's ready, that she'd like to share as well. Well, would like to speak through the microphone on this.
I think
Elliot,
yeah. Great.
Quite a few years ago, Bob and I went to Kauai, and I'm going to come over to this. We went to Kauai, and we didn't know it, but we ended up in the middle of a World Food Summit because they were fighting having GMOs on the island.
GMO research.
And Hawaii, when you go there and visit, you can get sprayed with over 200 different pesticides. And one of the things that we learned, they had people from all around the world there, but there's a fruit or like cassava. I don't know what it is, but it's a real staple of food in, I believe it's South America. And what happens with these GMO, these companies, is that they will come in and they will genetically modify the thing that people eat the most. And I just saw it as such a blatant attack on the food system by capitalists. And it just shocked me to think that, if let's say that bananas was our number one produce, then that's what they would go after, or tomatoes. And it was just kind of shocking to me that these things aren't happening by accident. These things are not happening. They are planned, and it all comes down to follow the money. It's about money, and it's it's dehumanizing and it's disrespect, and it just breaks my heart. And I'll just conclude there so others can, Elliot can jump in. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Elliot, do you want to
And
share?
we'll have Jesse.
For me, the moment I learned about GMOs, I've always had that sensibility that was like, no, no, no. I guess I tend to be very optimistic, and I'm just noticing, yes, there's been tons of stuff that's been totally ugly and totally violent, and so much that needs course correction. And at the same time, Flo, you inspired me when you shared about how you're treating your grandchildren. I have a client who was inspired to take a veggie, emphasizing plants course with me because she has a grandkid, and the parents decided that the grandkid is going to be a vegetarian, or at least raised as one, even though they're not. So this is something that's new for her. She wants to join the kid in becoming more plant-based. And I just feel like, okay, we've got Flo, we've got this person over here with the grandkids who are sort of inspiring people. I just find all of that so inspiring. And all the younger people I know from Generation X are so into local food. So there is no more, just in a couple of years, it's going to end of the transportation from Florida with grapefruits. It is, there are so many bright things, and most of them I think are underground and invisible. I think the church is underground. The roots are going to be just popping up. So anyway, that's just another point of view. I love Julian of Norwich. She says, glance at the negative and dwell in the positive.
Thanks.
Elliot. Yeah, I know you bring up another good. I mentioned a few cores of this topic, and as you see, there's so many directions this conversation can go. And Elliot, you reminded me about just this value for our bodies, for our well-being of eating locally. And I can personally say that a great gift that I have is where I live in Jemez Springs. I buy the pinto beans that are grown on the Pueblo from this beautiful couple. The blue corn, I use the blue corn as my exfoliant, as in, skincare. I attempt to make tortillas with. I have not been successful yet, but we keep trying. So eating locally, it supports the people in our community. It builds connection vibrationally and energetically. What we do when we are eating from the soil in our backyards, the plants that we're growing, is so powerful. So I think, Jesse, you wanted to share next.
I was thinking about the video you shared about obesity, and my boyfriend and I had been talking about how, of course, everybody is perfect and beautiful, but the way that some of our society has gone to just want to be thick like that doesn't seem the healthiest. And I know on the other end, eating a lot of sugar anyways, and sugar mostly, I think, can cause so many health issues even if you aren't obese. I know personally for myself, I grew up eating a lot of bread and sugar, and of course I had like fruit and veggies here and there, but I just wasn't really conscious of what I was eating. And it led to this point in my life, at least I believe, where I now have ulcerative colitis and an autoimmune disease. And when I talked to my gastroenterologist and asked him, what kind of diet should I follow? This was last year. He was like, oh, you don't need to worry about diet. It doesn't have anything to do with it, which like blew my mind that he would think that. And so many doctors do. I'm in like this natural group for people with colitis that are trying to discuss what kind of diets help them. And I've really, in the last year, tried to educate myself and learn more about that. But yeah, I think I was just bringing up, even if the consumption of not very healthy food doesn't lead to obesity, there's so many other ailments and diseases and issues it can cause So much inflammation from sugar. I mean, it's just insane. So I'm glad you're having this conversation, and I'm glad that, like Elliot was saying, everybody's kind of waking up to it, because just the effects it's having on all of us and future generations if we don't reverse the trend or actually help people. It just could get so much worse.
Yes, and we need each other, and Jesse and I have known each other for a long time, and we had some times to talk together last year, and I really honor you, Jesse, but she has fought for her health because of answers like that from doctors, and she took the liberty and the wherewithal, even maybe in your unknown, Jesse, to seek out people. Let me talk to someone. I think, Jesse, what was the documentary? Is it called Heal?
Yes, such a good one.
Yeah, and Patrick, Jesse, Patrick and I have had these phenomenal conversations. And I've even watched Patrick step into, just with his work, like Habits That Heal, but Jesse, my heart, I just want to cry right now. This young woman, and we know so many people are experiencing this, shouldn't necessarily, I remember one time Jesse calling me and the doctor's like, yeah, that doesn't matter at all. And I was like, no, and so we shouldn't have to be digging for this information, and I think it goes to Noelle's point that there's been a design that, again, I take it back to the Native American, like what I read, there's been design that, pharmaceutical companies and food companies, and they're in it for something else, if it's greed or money, whatever that is. And I hope, actually, Elliot, if you could just put that quote in the chat for me, because I'm already forgetting it, but dwell on the positive. And whatever you said there was so beautiful. So yes, let's acknowledge that, and then let's keep doing what we're doing now. I think Tex had his hand up. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. I think it was Flo who said we do better when we know better. This is the beauty of this threshold that humanity is at right now, and with the potential of the technology that is available to us. We see, this evening, we participating from different places of the North American continent. We all of relatively different backgrounds, and we are coming together to have a conversation, I'd say even commune, a communion of spirit with the best of intention. And this is empowering us. And this dynamic is going on at different levels currently, especially within the context of COVID confinement and this, how can I say, we being really sort of shaken in our, we cannot go on with the same-isness, because the same-isness may be easy, but we know that the solution is not there. So we have to look at how we can mobilize and have some concerted action. Now, I will not make it too long, but I can only say that there's a spark of hope, more than a spark of hope. I mean, like co-creators convergence, lit up by our most cherished Barbara Maxabed. And then we have, right now, we have Unity Earth Community, which has launched the World Unity Week for the second year in a row. I invite everyone to try and participate and promote participation, active participation. I mean, like we're having these discussions here once a week in co-creators convergence. I think in co-creators convergence, it's sort of catalyzing the imaginal cells of the famous caterpillar that is going to become a butterfly. Now, through my attending last October, a first meeting here at Co-Creators Convergence has led to me getting more involved. Like I've gone out of my comfort zone. I've gone out of my sort of retreat of being a bit of a solitary monk, hermit, you know, a bit disenchanted with the way things were, you know, going on in the world. But I really have hope. At the beginning of 2015, you know, after my family were, you know, my wife and I had separated, the 4 children had all grown up, the youngest had graduated and, you know, become an accountant and all. So we just folded the unit, you could say. And I was at one of my daughters, and there was a 3-year-old grandson on the couch watching one of his favorite morning TV shows, Peppa Pig, I think. And I had in front of me on the table a book by Eckhart Tolle, New Earth and Finding One's Purpose. And at some point, Tiago, the 3-year-old, just turned to me, you know, and said, "Are you okay, Grandpapa?" Now, you know, I was really like not okay, because I mean, with the Tolle's book about a new earth and finding one's life purpose, and just having sort of after 30 odd years separated, you know, and I mean, on my own, really, I was not okay. But I can tell you that I can say to Tiago now, I am okay. Because I am okay because I have hope. I have hope. And there's this dynamic going on. And the World Unity Week will be key to a certain shift. But all this is kindled every week by Co-Creators Convergence. So together we can do something, and we can do more than something. We can do something great. Our little effort may be small. I mean, today I started using the video camera. I had disabled the webcam a couple of years ago, and I couldn't even get it back to work, you know. So finally, last week, the daughter where I'm at, out of the blue, said, "I've ordered a camera for you on Amazon," because I'd been trying to download a new driver on my computer, you know, and it wasn't working. Anyway, just to say, I made my debut because I am confident in this dynamic. I've participated at national level in Seychelles, pre-independence, post-independence, post-coup d'etat, nation building and all that lot in meetings all over the world, UN and all that lot. It was really a lot of a waste of time, you know, well, relatively speaking, you know, but it's only us citizens that can really make a difference, you know. Patrick, from having listened to him, having listened to Karen a couple of times, you know, I mean, the amazing work that Zach has been doing to promote, he calls it a living experiment in nonviolence. It's not an experiment. We either do it or we don't. So it's, you know, love has to win out, as the assassinated Bishop Oscar Romeo of Salvador is cited as having said. And Elliot does great work also in, you know, the friend that gets these channels these messages, you know. So we all being inspirational in our own way. And just by being here, even if we don't say much sometimes, I think it's we contribute to the synergy, and I'm encouraged. I am also, I haven't been participating. Sometimes I've had to attend to other things because we need to have praxis. Like we have to tweak our own lives to make it more in line with what we're trying to do. So I thank you all for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tex. Really appreciate your kind heart. We have been hearing you for months. Now we also see you. It's wonderful. Thank you. One of the things I wanted to share also was, I put it in the chat, a really good resource, because I appreciate these comments that have been made about the dwelling on the negative, dwelling on the positive. And the Food Revolution Network is our go-to movement. They have an annual summit, it's probably just finished this week, that is free. And it has the perspective of sharing knowledge and information, like Jesse, in your circumstance. People have been speakers there where we've learned about how little medical students, doctors, are taught about nutrition, about wellness, about health. I mean, like very little. So knowing that, we can be our own advocate and find where the resources are, including in doctors that have made it their life purpose to know about health and wellness. And it goes into the politics, it goes into big ag, it goes into glyphosate, everything to make the listeners more aware of what's going on, which we might categorize as a negative, but there's an equal amount of balance about health, diets, food, recipes, resources that are really, really positive and helpful. Learning about the soil, oftentimes referring people to wonderful documentaries like Heal and others that have been done about the soil. So a big resource for us. Karen?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bob. I was just listening to Ocean Robbins because, again, the second I just said I was going to do this, people, without even knowing, I mean, Zachary knew, so he was sending me resources, but I had two other friends who just sent me information about Ocean Robbins and then the Food Revolution. I mean, it was just so beautiful. And that's the power of our energy and our connectedness and our heart connection and what I call surfing in our soul. And so we're blessed that there are so many resources. We are now coming up, 7 minutes to our time complete on the call. I didn't show you the other clips. If you want to save the chat, I put them in there. The soul food, I highly recommend listening to that. I had about a 3-minute and then the very last minute that I wanted to show you, but it's worth the whole watch. It's very short. So I do recommend that. And the thing that I was, I'll say now, and then I want to see, let me know, Anne, if you want to put your voice into the circle, because we did, I'll share like a little food tradition. So you're welcome to do that if you want. I wanted to share that one of the things that Ocean spoke about is just remembering with every single bite of food. So it's so great. Patrick started this group on Facebook called Habits That Heal. I think some of you are members. Habits That Heal. I think I said that right. And he did this Make Your Plate Pretty challenge. And it was fabulous. For 1 week, you spruced up your plate. You took a photo of it. You put the picture on and you took 3 breaths before you ate. And then one day we had to take 3 breaths, take a bite, put the fork down, 3 breaths through the whole meal. And so what it reminds me of when I was listening to this Food Revolution talk is try this week. When you eat your meal, think about every single person that was involved to get you whatever you're eating. And it doesn't matter if you eat at McDonald's, then you're going to be thinking about Ray Kroc and how he started McDonald's and all the way through and all the processing and the many levels of processing that might be going into that. If you get some kale and you have a kale salad, think about every person that planted the seed, the farmer, the soil, every aspect of the planet, every energy that went into that. It's really powerful. It's really powerful. I could go on and on, but I'm watching 5 minutes to sort of wrap up here. So Anne, did you want to say hi?
Yes, I'll say hello. And thank you for inviting me, Karen. I'm so sorry. I was taking a nap and I happened to look at my Facebook and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's right now. I wasn't sure what time it was. So I kind of missed what everything you were doing, but just listening at the end, it sounded very fascinating. And when Karen came over to my house last week, I didn't realize she was plant-based. And I was planning on making a large salad with lots of vegetables and fish, salmon. And so it worked out perfectly because she was able to eat my salad and, you know, didn't need the fish. So I was happy that I could accommodate her in that way. And I'm glad I wasn't making like steak or something. But I just want to say, when you just mentioned going to McDonald's and thinking about Ray Kroc, I am dying because I was thinking about that as I believe Noelle was talking about being in Hawaii, and there was, you know, some people protesting and stuff. I happened to watch a thing on History Channel, just tuned in, wasn't really paying attention, but it talked about Ray Kroc wanting all of his dang French fries all across the country to be exactly the same and taste the same and be the same. And they had to come from the same growers and grow the same potato. And they did all this research and they weren't tasting the same because, you know, they grew them at different times of the year or something. So he completely changed the agriculture at that time to make the potatoes all the same. And I can't remember the words and all of that, but I can't believe you've just said that because it was on my mind. And he totally changed the industry for good and bad, most likely, because it became an agribusiness or whatever. So there you go. Anyway, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And I do want to thank you. There, again, we already mentioned that this conversation could go in so many ways, and that's a whole other one. And I didn't know that, so thank you. I do want to connect real quick because this is what we do in Co-Creators Convergence. But Bob and Noelle, and you've heard me talk about her. Her brother started the Catholic Worker in Los Angeles, Jeff Dietrich. Bob and Noelle helped Father Joe start the Catholic Worker in
Wisconsin and Oshkosh.
So,
okay.
For further discussion, we'll keep that in mind. Wanted to make and it's so important because
say that again.
I just said, well, we can further. I just wanted to make that connection for further discussion. But you know, Jeff has fed hundreds of thousands of people.
Oh yeah, yes,
you know,
yes.
Through the Catholic Worker. So we, if you need to get off because we're going to go a little, just 5, 6, 7 minutes over, please just pop off. I understand. Let's see. Let's help Flo for a second here. She's saying the 3 dots to save. Oh, does anyone know how to save the chat on an iPad? Or we can send it to you, Flo. Okay, so we can do that. Thanks, Patrick. I do want to, I don't know if Patrick put his link in there because I have made a choice. Patrick, before you pop off, or if you're gone, are you gone? If you could put your link in the chat, I'd appreciate it, how people could get a hold of you. I've made a commitment based on food. And as Anne mentioned, I've been eating plant-based, but I realized there's a lot more polishing up I could do. Patrick is launching a year-long program, and actually the exact name of the program is escaping me. Oh, it's what he did his talk on. Dinacharya.
Dinacharya are the habits that will work on. The program is called Journey to You.
Okay. Thank you. So Journey to You, and Patrick was one of our CCC speakers, and his friend Shauna will be on in May. She's phenomenal. So I made a commitment to take that year-long program under the coaching of my son. I'm a little nervous, to be honest with you. It's a year-long commitment, but I believe that there's, I think there might be one or two other people on this call that are doing it, and I think there's a few more spots left in the program. So if you're interested in that at all, reach out to Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. Good night. And
before you leave, Patrick, we put the Facebook, your mom mentioned about the Facebook group about flavor, fun.
Habits that heal.
Habits to heal. There we go. We want to dig into that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that in.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I just really appreciate this, and I'm excited to keep on refining in my own body and to help, be a resource to the communities that I'm in. Just the idea that like the biology knows how to eat, but the psychology has kind of gotten in the way based on conditioning patterns, which totally makes sense. It's just a double-edged sword of the fact that we have this exquisite technology to work with in our mental body and our emotional body. And the last thing I want to say is we've been hunter-gatherers a lot longer than we've been modern humans. I think in his book, We Are the Weather, Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast, Jonathan Safran Foer talks about this idea that if all of human civilization existed in the span of 24 hours, we would have been hunter-gatherers up until 10 minutes before midnight. And so there's hope that we can go back to that, maybe. When you mentioned the hope text, I appreciated that. And I'm like, it was a good reminder for me that like, yeah, there's a lot of weight from old unhealthy habits, but there's also a lot more weight from really resilient, adaptable qualities that we've had to use to nourish ourselves in the past before factory farming and food became a thing. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you. And I also asked Zachary if he had a minute to put his link in. If you don't know the experience, I like it. Actually, I can't say the word experiment text because of what you just said, like living nonviolence. That's all I can, those are the only words that will come out of my mouth.
The Living Experiment in Nonviolence.
Yes.
That's the name of the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll put it in there.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's phenomenal resources. We began this conversation with food traditions, how they impact your life today, how they impact your community and our global community. We know almost every single person here was able to share, a really warm memory of food. And we know how food is attached to emotion. So I'm inviting myself and each and every one of us to just keep doing what we're doing. I mean, if I've learned anything this year, it's that I just can only impact me, do what I do, and then shine my light. And so I'm going to keep doing that. And intention is so powerful. And I thank each and every one of you. I want to try to do this one screen share real quick. I had shared with a mom today, asked her what was her, the same question. And she said, this isn't pulling up to the, hold on here. I know my screen is a little jumbled, but are you guys just seeing this little, these two little pictures? They're not large, but are you seeing that?
We're seeing a picture of some Iris's artwork on top of the recipe.
Okay, perfect. So, well, let me just show you that. So this young little girl, I asked this mom, she grew up on a cattle ranch, and she is now primarily eats plant-based and a big juicer. And so her mom would have them come in from the ranch during the hot hours of the day. She said she would put on like some historical information show or read them about history and make bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwiches. And it was just this great tradition. So she has evolved that to a vegan bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. And then she said, oh, my daughter drew out this recipe. I just wanted to show that up there to put up the artwork of this little 7-8-year-old who, wanted to do that. And then I wanted to also just say, She said, cool topic of carrying traditions forward with new ethical spin. So I liked that phrase, new ethical spin. And I've done a lot of work with Jacqueline, and I have her book, and I had it on my Facebook for a while. It's called Shockwave. So she doesn't eat meat anymore. She did this beautiful book of, it's all colorful on the chakras and juicing. And so it's just so fascinating how foods shape us and help us to make our decisions, you know, whether we were eating crappy food, so to speak, which you'll hear in the YouTube soul food, the soul food YouTube, or if we were some of the people who were eating vegetarian changed their ways.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight. And please come back. These Thursday things have just been awesome. Ever since Karen got involved, it just got, so thank you everyone, and good night.
Absolutely true. We hope this, Karen, we hope this will be a part of World Unity Week. Bring this subject and we could talk about it for hours upon hours upon hours. This has been a delicious evening. All so much.
Thank you all.
We are the tastiest dish on the planet.
Join us next week, May 6th, when Tracy J., the Quiet Rebel, leads conversation of love first, always.